Slovakia, in the Czech Republic, it's the world's only airworthy Avro Anson Mk.I. Back with us shortly. Looks like the Bristol M1C we had hoped also to see in that World War I slot has been reluctant. So now it's on to another of our international visitors. What a lovely little machine from the French wing of the Commemorative Air Force, the Piper J3C65 Cub. "26 squadrons across coastal and bomber commands had Anson when war broke out. As a bomber, this aircraft could carry 360 pounds of bombs internally, not a huge payload, and it was fitted with just 2.303-inch machine guns for self-defense. But it wasn't perhaps as lacking capability as you might think, because they could also mount a pair of further 250-pound bombs on external racks. Nonetheless, it wasn't much for Bomber Command in part to go into war with. The same indeed was true of Coastal Command, for whom this aircraft had originally been designed. Just 2 days after the outbreak of war, number 500 Squadron made the RAF's first U-boat attack of hostilities, with Mark I Ansons like this. Then in May 1940, that same squadron was flying coastal patrols in these obsolete aircraft. As the month wore on, they found themselves covering the evacuation of the British Expeditionary Force from Dunkirk. It was on the 1st of June that year when a section of 3 number 500 Squadron Ansons, led by Pilot Officer Pete Peters, was on one such patrol, hoping to reassure the remaining troops left on the beaches on the most famous Anson engagement of the war. Those Ansons were pounced upon by no fewer than 9 Messerschmitt Bf-109s of the Luftwaffe. Pete Peters slowed his Anson down, the Messerschmitts overshot, and 2 of the 109s were shot down by the Ansons. Peters was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, and his 4 crew members the Distinguished Flying Medal. But what can you say about this utterly beautiful restoration? The world's only airworthy Mark I Anson. This aircraft was built at the Avro plant at Eden in 1943. It went to Australia with the Royal Australian Air Force. It stayed in Australia post-war, including a long spell flying with a company called Brain and Brown Air Freighters in Melbourne, which had about 5 Ansons, and with whom this one had an incredibly colourful career. He used to fly cargo runs, this aircraft, from Melbourne to Tasmania and the Bass Strait Islands, including transporting crayfish from Tasmania to Melbourne. And Terry Brain, one of the proprietors of Brain and Brown, used to sit on a street corner in Melbourne and sell the crayfish to help cover his operating costs. Once, one of the cages containing the crayfish opened in flight, and the crayfish escaped, leaving the cockpit floor crawling with them, and it was still there when the port engine failed while the aircraft was on final approach to Moorabbin Airport. Nonetheless, it made it. It did have a takeoff mishap at Moorabbin in 1960. The Australian authorities at the time were grounding most wooden-winged aeroplanes because of glue failures, so an official Avro modification was used to modify this aeroplane with a metal wing, and that helped ensure its long-term survival, and the sight we now see.
Today is painted to represent Anson Mk.I 6183 of 206 Squadron RAF Coastal Patrol, which was shot down by a German Heinkel 115 float plane in September 1939, just 2 days after war was declared. It was in fact the very first British aircraft to be lost in combat during the Second World War. And today it is in as close as possible configuration to that aircraft.
Spent the past few weeks in Britain. It did the Cosford Air Show. It has since been back to its birthplace at Eden, the site of the former Avro plant, now Leeds Bradford Airport. It's also spent some days at the Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Centre at East Kirkby. It's been to the real aeroplane.